good afternoon, everyone. All right, a few of you did the right thing. We will give the rest of you an opportunity. When I extend the greeting, it is your job to return it. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Much better, thank you. We filled the room, we might as well fill it with our voices too. So it is really a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you for coming today. I especially want to thank the team that put this event together and our partners who come today, some of my favorite people in the world. Thank you all for coming. So normally on President's Day, people do two things. They go and shop for large household appliances, and they memorialize the accomplishments of our presidents. Well, there's a lot to memorialize today, because in just 4 weeks, this Trump administration has already cemented its place in history as the most chaotic, cruel, corrupt, and constantly illegal administration we have ever seen. In just 4 short weeks, and it feels like so much longer, doesn't it? In just 4 short weeks, we have had hourly examples of overreach and power grabs. Every single hour. And so when I think about when I think about what we are going to do about that, I go to stories, all right? So my father is from the deep South, where storytelling is both an art and a pastime. And I remember today the very first story that I heard as a child. The very first story that I heard as a child. It is not great literature. It is not sophisticated. It is not elegant. But I guarantee you it's one you've heard before. So how many of you remember the story of the 3 little pigs?
Yes.
Right, so what happened? The pigs decided to build houses to shield themselves from the big bad wolf. The first little pig was at least a little bit lazy, if not complacent, and so he decided to build a house made out of straw. Well, the big bad wolf came along, he huffed and he puffed, he huffed and he puffed, he blew that house down and he ate the first little pig up. The second little pig was a little bit wiser than that one. He was watching from afar, and so he decided to build a house made out of sticks. Well, still, the big bad wolf came along. He huffed and he puffed, he huffed and he puffed. He blew that house down, and he ate the second little pig up. Well, the third little pig was wiser than all the rest. Was a little more strategic, a little more thoughtful. And so he decided to put in the work to build a house made out of brick and mortar. He laid a strong foundation and built a house out of brick so that when the big bad wolf came along, he huffed and he puffed, he huffed and he puffed, but the house did not blow down. Now, the point of stories like this that we hear as children is not just to entertain us. It is also to teach us a lesson. They are parables. We're supposed to get something out of it. The lesson of this particular story is a couple things. It teaches us to know the value of planning and strategy and hard work. It tells us not to be complacent. And it tells us to be aware of the danger all around us from those who would wreak havoc and chaos and destruction. Now, I wonder what all that has to do with today. You already know. The answer is that we are going to spend the next couple of years dealing with Donald Trump and Chris Kobach and their friends all over this country who are going to be huffing and puffing and huffing and puffing. There's going to be more huffing and puffing than you have ever seen before. And our job, all of us here today, is to build and keep a house of brick that is so strong that all the huffing and puffing doesn't matter and the house doesn't blow down. That is our job. We've done it before, and we can do it again. And there's a couple areas where I want to point out to you where we especially have to make sure that we are building that strong foundation, building a house out of brick. One of them you heard Leslie talk about already. The Trump administration's creation of this weird quasi-agency called DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. Really, it's the Department of gutting everything. It's the Department of gaslighting everybody. It's the Department of graft and evil. I got a bunch of these. This is what I do in the car. I think of them. Don't judge me. You have your hobbies. I have mine. Doge set up by a group of unelected, unappointed folks who are trying to wreak havoc on everything. On the federal civil service, trying to block money from going to things that's already been appropriated for, and most of all, taking every last bit of your private individual data. It is a violation of the Constitution, it's a violation of the law, it's a violation of common sense. And so we need to make sure that our elected officials all over this country know that we are not on board with this power grab, we are not on board with this overreach. And if they love it so much, here's what I want each and every one of them to do. I want them to gather all their identity documents, their social security card, their birth certificate, their bank statements. I want them to write all their passwords down on a piece of paper and pen. And then I want them to go down to the Best Buy, head over to the tech office, the Geek Squad, hand it all over to them and just say, have at it, have fun. Root your way through everything I've got, it's fine. Because guess what? The folks there, they're a lot better vetted than the folks who are staffing Doge. So we got to make sure that folks know about that, that they know we are not on board with that overreach if we're going to build a house made out of brick. Second thing, the Trump administration is waging war on DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. But make no mistake about it, this is not about HR presentations that some people may not like to sit through. This is about attacking the very principle of non-discrimination. This is about denying the existence of racism and sexism and every other ism. This is about rewriting history to make it more comfortable for Donald Trump and his friends. Because in the process of getting rid of attacking DEI, what did they also do? They got rid of an order from the 1960s that just said that the federal government should try not to actively discriminate against people. That's the standard. Just try not to actively discriminate against people. And that's what they got rid of. We got to make sure that they know we're not on board with that overreach. We're not on board with that power grab if we're going to build a house made out of brick. The third thing, if you believe that the only threat to our civil rights and our civil liberties is coming from Washington, you are in a wonderful, wonderful fantasy world. Because President Trump and his allies have allies and enablers right here in Kansas. They've got folks in the state legislature who are trying to not only implement their agenda, but to go further. They want to be even more extreme. They want to do even more. And so it is our job to push back on that, and it's our job to see the connections between them. They're not disconnected from one another. They're not disassociated from one another. They are one and the same. And in particular, the biggest threat that we face this year is from a guy who some of you may have heard of before. His name is Chris Kobach. Thank you. I love it when you know what to do. Chris Kobach is determined to undermine the civil rights and civil liberties of every single Kansan. And when he doesn't get his way, he's determined to rewrite the system and the structure so that he does. So a couple years ago, as you heard Emily talk about, the state Supreme Court ruled that there's a right to bodily autonomy, which protects reproductive freedom here in Kansas. The Supreme Court ruled on it. You, the voters, agreed with it in historic proportions. Well, Chris Kobach thinks that you don't know what you're talking about. And so rather than respect the rule of the people, rather than respect the independence of the Supreme Court, rather than respect a system that has existed for almost 70 years, and that is the envy of the nation, Chris Kobach wants to gut the Kansas Supreme Court, change the way that we select nominees so that they happen in partisan elections. And make no mistake about it, this is not about good government. This is not some sort of high-minded argument about the best process. He says it right out loud. He wants to change the process so that they can get rid of the right to have reproductive freedom. That's the whole thing. It's not about process. It's not about good government. It is about explicitly denying the right that y'all said you wanted protected by the state constitution. They're debating that in the state legislature now. They have a ways to go. They don't really have all the votes that they need, which means that we have a place to do something here. We have a way to protect the independence of the judiciary, and more importantly, a way to protect our civil rights. That is the work that we got to do. We got to defeat this proposed constitutional amendment to change the judicial selection process. We want to build a house of brick. That is one great big old brick in the wall. That is the work that we have to do. Those are all things that we have to do. If we want to tell these folks that we are tired of overreach, we are tired of the power grab. It's only been 4 weeks, but we have had it already. And I think you are here today for that reason, right? Leslie's going to tell you in a minute about how you can take action on a couple of these things, but all of them are about saying, we are tired of the overreach, we are tired of the power grabs. They're about telling Chris Kobach and all of his friends in the Kansas legislature, keep your hands to yourself, keep your hands off our bodies. Keep your hands to yourself, keep your hands off our ballots. Keep your hands to yourself, keep them off our court. Keep your hands to yourself, keep them off our state constitution. Keep your hands to yourself, keep them off Kansas. But again, these things are connected. So we also got to make sure that President Trump and his allies, these folks who want to shred the Constitution, denigrate our democracy, attack our freedom, we got to make sure that they know we want them to keep their hands to themselves too. Keep your hands inside the vehicle. Keep your hands inside the Tesla. Keep your hands off our data. Keep your hands inside the Tesla. Keep them off our votes. Keep your hands inside the Tesla. Keep them off our democracy. And keep them off of our America. That's what we got to do. That's what we got to do. And you are the ones to do it by taking action here today. Doing that means being in touch with your elected officials. And I already know when we say that, some of you have an internal monologue running. Oh no, they'll never listen to us. No, my official is already a good one. I don't need to speak up. No, that one is a crazy person. They're not going to listen to me. Tell that monologue to hush. Because no politician, whether good or bad, ever does a thing until they have done it. No politician ever does a thing until there is someone who is asking them to do it, calling on them to do it, letting them know that folks expect it and will support them if they do it. And the only thing that has ever stopped Donald Trump has been people. Not politicians, not the courts. Oh, sure, they pulled some levers. But people were the ones who got politicians and courts to take a stand. So when that monologue tells you, oh no, it won't make a difference, tell it to hush up and do the thing anyways. That's the way we tell them hands off. That's the way that we build a house made out of brick. Because we got to learn from the 3 little pigs. Now is not a moment to live in a straw hut of complacency. Now is not a moment to putter around in a stick shack saying, oh, maybe we can just make a deal with the big bad wolf. Maybe a little light compromise and collaboration is just what the moment requires. No. Now is a moment to live in a brick house. Now is the moment for us to do the work to make sure that our defenses are strong and tall and thick and impervious. So that when all the huffing and puffing and huffing and puffing comes and continues for 4 years, this house of American democracy does not fall down.